Right. Good afternoon. Sorry about that. Getting the technology working. We are live on YouTube, so welcome. It's Tuesday afternoon, just after 2 p.m. and we are live on YouTube, on Zoom, and welcome to Question Time with Dill, the party wall guy. Let's get going. Got a really interesting session this afternoon. Okay, quick introduction. My name's Dill Gujral. I'm the Chief Party Wall Surveyor at 1996 Party Wall. We specialize in party wall issues, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And let's get cracking. Got a really interesting question to discuss this afternoon. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so this is a question and answer session. We talk about everything to do with party walls, try and stay clear of boundaries, although might have to look at that, and all the other aspects of construction law and so forth. So we're trying to focus in on Party Wall Act. Please keep your questions coming in. There's a question and answer session here. I'll try and answer the chat on YouTube as well, but not guaranteeing that. I can miss that. So, hey, we've got a question going. So audience questions, please. If you want to put them in your question and answer session. Yeah, okay, I know what's coming. Right. Let's get it going. Okay, so one of our regulars has sent in a really awesome question. I'd like to know if it's possible to let me read it out, and then we'll set the context up, and then we'll discuss the question really as in detail as we can. Okay, so before we start, special announcement. This Thursday, in fact, 10th of September, 11 a.m. I'm very lucky to be hosting Virtual Architects Business Growth Summit. The idea is in this time, everyone's got issues with their business. We're trying to help architects to increase their business, help them deliver better, and help them in their business. So we've got a really great planning consultant coming in to speak, excellent property dealer, excellent chap, Jack Jiggins, you might have heard of him, really hot on property sourcing and doing deals and making deals work. We've also got a really good guy who does scanning. So where you're doing large projects that you might be fearing to take on as an architect because they're too difficult, too complex. Peter does the scanning for you so you can create Revit models. And that means you can either handle more business or handle it in an effective manner, saving you to go back and forth in terms of measurements. And I'll be launching my Architects Toolkit, which helps architects to understand the party wall process and try and get a better result for all the owners involved, especially their clients. So looking forward to that this Thursday, 11 a.m. onwards. Please join me. It'll actually be live on, let me get my magic wand working. Right, so it'll be live on one of our partners, the Property Professionals Facebook account. We'll have it on Zoom as well. If you connect with me, I can send you a link. Not too late to register. Tickets are absolutely free. Right, let's get going. So see you on Thursday, hopefully, and there'll be great amount of value, particularly when we've got new planning stuff coming out. And David Kemp is a former lawyer and a barrister and a planning consultant, and he's had great experience with commercial developments, working with councils and so on. So he's always good when he speaks on this stuff. And particularly it's hot topic, you know, with potential for double-story additions to buildings and so on, and Class E transition into business. So see you on Thursday. Right, let's get this question started. Okay. The question is a little bit complex. From another party wall surveyor, in fact, and he would like to know, I'm leaning on this side because the screen's on this side. I would like to know if possible, after the initial 14-day notice, when you serve a further 10-day notice, that the building owner can use the following words. So it's about the wording of the letter as a 10-4 reminder notice. So I request that you consent to the notice, which you can still do, or appoint me as agreed surveyor, or appoint another surveyor within the next 14 days, or your neighbor will, in the next 10 days, or your neighbor will make an appointment on your behalf. Surely this cannot be right. Surely this cannot be the right, I think he's meaning the right wording, as it initially mentions the agreed surveyor. And this is mentioned within the 14 days. Okay, so I've got a little slide on this that I was going to, not actually on this question, but a slightly different question. So I'm going to set the scene for everybody here. Let's go to this. So back to the Architect Summit. We're going to focus on property developers, financiers, property managers and investors, and most importantly of all, architects, because everything starts with the architect. When someone who's not in the property industry wants to do something, they usually go and find an architect. And from my experience, unless architects are doing party wall stuff, they don't actually understand it properly. So I'm not having a go at them, but I'm just trying to share some knowledge, and that's the whole idea behind everything I do here. Okay, so let me set the scene for this question. I'm going to just jump through this one. Might as well make this announcement while I'm here, actually. We're also looking for architects to come on guests so they can ask their questions on Zoom meetings in future. So if you're an architect, get in touch with me and we'll have you on guest so you can actually ask me questions in person, or well, obviously I've been Zoom, but we can have a little more discussion and a little more intensely so that I can try and help you deal and understand the party wall issues your clients are going to likely face. So if you're an architect, please contact me. Always happy to have you on a show and make it more interesting for the audience. Right. Okay. So getting back to this question on 10-4 appointments, let me set the scene for you guys first, so we get some background. So you've seen this before, and this sort of sets out the most common rare residential works we see going around. If we look in our street, we'll see at least 2 or 3 of these going on everywhere. Probably not if you're in the north, but no comments, right? So definitely in London, you'll see at least 2 or 3 going on all the time, summer, winter, and so on. And these are the most common projects you have: rear extensions, loft conversions, chimneys, basements, and porches. Now, out of those, and I'll talk about this slightly later, I belong to an institution called Faculty of Party Wall Surveyors. They're trained party wall surveyors. The one type of project we're not allowed to act as an agreed surveyor is that of basements. Okay, the basements, and usually commercial works, because commercial owners are a bit more savvy, they have their own surveyors. So they usually end up appointing their own surveyor, not always, but we have guidance that we cannot act as an agreed surveyor on a basement. All the other normal projects, yeah, within certain circumstances, it's fine to act as an agreed surveyor if you wish. So the party wall process is as follows, and from day one of my training, I've been told that it's the party wall surveyor's job to resolve disputes, not to cause them. Okay, so we're not there to cause trouble between neighbours. Our function is a statutory function in that we're there to help neighbours resolve disputes. And let's look at the party wall process. Quick summary. Stage 1 starts off with the building owner who issues a party wall notice. This is not a party wall agreement. So number of times I hear this: we sent our neighbours a party wall agreement, they won't agree to it, they won't sign it off. What do we do? Okay, so and this will clarify later on. It's not a party wall agreement. It's just a notice that the building owner sends showing their intention to start works. Okay, now there's a process for serving it. I'll talk about that shortly. Stage 2 of the process is decided by the adjoining owner, who replies, and these are the options they have. They can ask for a schedule of condition, which is very much like doing a survey of a car, well, sorry, not survey, which is a survey of the adjoining owner's property, just as if it was before the works begin, so that they have a baseline of the condition of their property, and that's to resolve any issues of damage that could occur in the future. That that's what goes on there. It's basically a photographic survey, very similar to you rent a car, they'll take photographs of a car, so that you've got baseline in terms of if there's any bumps, scratches, and so forth. And it actually serves the building owner in that it saves them having false and malicious claims. So it's to prevent false and malicious claims, so that, and my favorite story, and those that are regulars have heard this before. I went in to do a survey. This is not this is not the only time this is sort of thing has happened, but I went in to do a survey, and it was the lady of the house there. I said, have you had any leaks? She said, yeah, we were standing in the patio. She said, up there, we've got a bathroom above it. It was a water leak 2 years ago, and you can see the watermark. So I logged that in there and put it in my schedule of condition report, sent it to both the owners and the building. And her husband rang me up, and he was quite angry, actually. He's saying, you said there's water damage in my house. What are you talking about? There's no water damage in my house. And, you know, he said it with such certainty and such force and vigor. I thought, messed something up. I must have, you know, got the wrong house or something. I'm sending him the wrong survey. So I looked at my notes, looked at my file, and guess what? There's the photo. So replied by email, attached the photo, and didn't hear back. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is we get used to our circumstances. We sort of filter out what's going on, and you know, we're deletion creatures by the way we function. And if we see it often enough, we're just going to forget to note it. Someone else comes in and it's noted down. But when the neighbors start works, the adjoining owners tend to pay more attention to their property and look for the cracks. So we've had this on a number of occasions whereby the cracks that are already there are noted by this, so that, you know, you as a building owner don't end up getting the blame for it. Anyway, just going off a little bit of a tangent there. The second option I have is to ask for a party wall agreement, and now this can be done in a number of ways. Party wall agreement is basically a legal document which sets out rights and responsibilities of each party and what to do if there's damage, dispute resolution procedure. The whole idea behind all this process is to stop people going to court. Okay, so basic terms of a party wall act: you have the building owner. Now that's a single party. It could be a leaseholder, freeholder. It could be a corporate body. It's whoever's wanting to do the works on the property. On the other side, you'll have the adjoining owners. You get the freeholders, leaseholders, more than 1 year. People who have rights to receive, parties who have rights to receive profits, and those that are contracted to buy land. I'm not going to go through this right now because I'm trying to illustrate the point of the 10.4 letter. Certain parties that are excluded are short-hold tenants, council tenants, and mortgage companies. Okay. Now, for each adjoining owner, this is the likely replies you can expect to receive from them. So firstly, they can consent with a schedule of conditions. So basically, go and do a schedule of condition survey, then you're ready to go. And as I explained previously, it's a photographic survey of their property prior to the works beginning, so that everyone's got a baseline, no arguments afterwards. And nowadays it's done via photograph. So, you know, we're quite lucky that that's quite well evidenced. Okay, sorry, got another part of that question. Okay, dissent to the, so they can dissent to the party wall notice, and there's two ways they can do it. They can either agree to use an agreed surveyor, so they can use the same surveyor as their next door, apart from basements, or they have the right to choose their own surveyor. Either way, the outcome is very similar. Well, it's exactly the same almost. You have a schedule of condition, a party wall award, and then works can get on and start. Now, there is a sort of fourth option. Not really an option, it's whereby there's no reply, they don't bother replying. Look, there's enough stuff going on, we're all forgetting to do stuff. We've all got things to think about. and you know, we don't always take care of mail and the issues that we do. In fact, I messed something up yesterday. I'm not going to go into it. Luckily, it wasn't work related, and I think I got out of it okay-ish, but we'll see. Anyway, so if they don't reply, there's no response. The next step is to send a 10-4 reminder letter. So basically, the building, well, it's usually the surveyors. This process is usually carried out by surveyors on their behalf. They act as an agent. Now, there's definitions in law. A surveyor at this point serving notices is acting as an agent. You're only an appointed surveyor when there's a dispute. Now, that could, I was going to say deemed, but I'll explain that later on. So basically, you're sending, actually, if there's no reply within 14 plus to 16 days, it's called a deemed dispute. So automatically, it's assumed that there's a deemed dispute rather than a deemed consent. So they're deemed to the adjoining owners are deemed to be in dispute. Okay. Now the reason it's 14 plus 2, 14 days is the prescribed notice period, 2 days for service. Okay. And at this point, the building owner surveyor usually sends a 10-day reminder letter saying, please appoint a surveyor or one will be appointed on your behalf. And then if there's no reply to that after 12 days, a surveyor is appointed on their behalf, and it can't be an agreed surveyor at this point. So the process can carry on. There's a request for a schedule of condition, and sometimes in these occasions, there's no reply because they haven't received the letter, there's no one living there, no one's taking action, or they're just being belligerent and they don't want the neighbors to do the work. Either way, the outcome is the same. You could do an award and get on with it. You can't force someone to have a schedule of condition. It's not compulsory. Although Section 16 does give rights of entry, but it's never been used. So different scenario. Now, 10-day letter wording. This is the question being asked, right? So my good friend Stuart Frame and Nick Isaacs will probably have a go at me and find there's something wrong, but I'm going to share what I will put in my 10-4 letter. With reference to the notice that was served on the date, on you dated X, whatever the date is, I confirm that we have not received any reply and a dispute is therefore deemed. Now, this is the important bit, deemed to have been arisen in accordance with the Act. You could phrase that slightly differently if you want. That's the way I do it. I therefore request that you appoint a surveyor within the next 10 days, or I shall have to make an appointment on your behalf in accordance with Section 10.4b in order that the work might proceed. It's actually not me making the appointment, it's the building owner that makes it on the adjoining owner's behalf, but usually I end up guiding them through the process. But basically what you're saying is you haven't replied, it's a deemed dispute, you need to act within the next 10 days or an appointment will be made on your behalf. And the third paragraph, now this is only where they can still appoint an agreed surveyor. I just remind them that they can appoint an agreed surveyor. The idea behind this is to stop disputes occurring and to make, and this is only in residential settings where we're allowed to act as an agreed surveyor. We remind them that they can still appoint us as an agreed surveyor. There's actually no set format in the Act, and this is the format that was recommended by the Faculty of Party Law Surveyors. So that's the format I use. Now, the question being asked here is 10 days, in the 10 days letter, would it be mentioned to provide me with the details of the adjoining owner surveyor? If not, appointed the adjoining owner surveyor will make an appointment of another surveyor on your behalf. Please clarify for me. Yeah, so what you're saying is, in the paragraph we're saying, I therefore request that you appoint a surveyor within the next 10 days, or I shall make an appointment on your behalf. So at this point, they can still consent, they can still make an appointment, and they can still choose an agreed surveyor. But basically, they still have all of these three options. You're not taking anything away from them, but you're just moving the process forward so that the building owner can get on and move, get on with their works. The function of the Act is twofold. One, to make sure that the building owner can build, and secondly, make sure that the adjoining owner's property is protected. There's a set process, but the 10.4 letter isn't described. Now, previous to this question, I think the point was, is my understanding wrong? Okay, so mentioned provide, yeah, so as far as I understand, and I'm probably going to get hold over the calls by the barristers, the important point is we've sent you a previous notice. This was the letter, date of that letter. We haven't received a reply. Therefore, you're in dispute. It's a deemed dispute. And we're requesting that they either appoint a surveyor or we're going to appoint one on their behalf. It'll be the building owners. However, they can still consent. I put down be an agreed surveyor, which basically means they can ask for a schedule of conditions or an agreed surveyor. I'm going through all the three formats that they can do. However, the question was a little bit more intricate. I can't put it on screen at the moment. In that you're actually asking them to appoint you as an agreed surveyor. So you can still appoint me as an agreed surveyor. If you don't, we're going to appoint a surveyor on your behalf. Now, I think the wording that was sent to me is a little bit erroneous because it mentions that you either appoint me as an agreed surveyor or we're going to appoint one on your behalf. So this is my understanding of it, in that we have to bring to their can't really say notice, bring to their attention that we've already served them a notice that they're in a deemed dispute scenario, i.e. that the Act says you're in dispute. Now, this was a change between the London 1939 Act and the 1996 Party Wall Act. In the London 39 Act, because it was inner city boroughs, eight inner city boroughs, largely commercial works. It was mainly commercial stuff going on, and it was understood that everyone was savvy enough to understand this. This was a change made when it transitioned to the 96 Act. It became an automatic dissent rather than consent. So therefore it's treated as deemed dispute. So you have to bring that to their attention. You have to ask them to reply within the next 10 days. Either they can appoint their own surveyor, that's their legal right, or you're going to make an appointment, you or the building, well, actually the building owner is going to make an appointment on their behalf under section 10.4b, and whereby you're allowed to have a agreed surveyor. You can always bring that to their attention just to help things along. So hopefully that answers your question. Right, so another interesting question. We've got a debate going on here. Not quite a debate. That's the wording I use. Now, there's no prescribed wording in the Act, and what we're doing is we're mentioning the date of the original notice, that they're in deemed dispute under section 10.4b. They still have the right to appoint their own surveyor, or will appoint one on their behalf. Now, once the surveyor is appointed on their behalf, they can't then come back and change a different surveyor. So by that, this is the way the process has kept moving. And you as a building owner, it's in your interest to make this appointment, because they can't then go and appoint somebody else who'll start the whole process up again. So in terms of building owner view, we're trying to get the process done as quickly as possible. In terms of the adjoining owner view, they're protected because it's two different surveyors. You can't act as an agreed surveyor under 10.4. Only if they're happy to, you can then act as an agreed surveyor. However, once you make a 10.4 appointment, because appointments can't be rescinded, they can't go and appoint their own surveyor and restart the whole process. So that's important for building owners, because the Act is designed to be fair on the building owners. Otherwise, no building work's ever going to get done. And it's hard enough to do building work in the UK as it is. All right, so hopefully that fixes it. That might be of interest to you. Now, adding on to that point, There's a really great booklet by the government called, it was actually by the communities section, brought out in 2002. Really detailed, really good information, and that's the organisation I belong to, Faculty of Party Wall Surveyors. It's on there. However, it actually doesn't talk about 10-4 process. It's entirely missing, and I think at that point, because it was just after the Act had come into place, 2002, but took a couple of years to write, they assumed that everybody was either going to be chummy, agreed surveyor, and not get into issues. So it's really good on explaining type A party walls, type B party walls where you're giving notice. It's weak on a couple of points. The 10-4 process is not in there at all. The notices, sample notices they give aren't very helpful. And actually, we've created a little PDF template that we give out to people. You connect with us. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, you might be able to get it, actually download it as a LinkedIn. I haven't quite figured the technology out. I'll put it up as a post or I'll repost it. So by all means, download it. And this is how you actually serve a notice, because this booklet doesn't talk about the 10-4 process. It doesn't go into how you're going to appoint a surveyor on someone's behalf. You need to have the certificate of posting to be able to prove the notice, the 10-4 letter. It misses all that out. The other point it misses out is the third surveyor and fees and so forth. But apart from that, it's really great booklet. You know, it explains the Act and it's very helpful. In fact, I'll borrow some of the drawings from there to illustrate points. So, good stuff. And let me see if Ranjit's on board, one of our sponsors. So, Ranjit's one of our sponsors, Property Investor News. Ranjit is Property Investor News, is one of our sponsors. They've got a great deal. They'll send you 3 back issues. They'll also send you this really great book, worth reading, a magazine, really good magazine, actually, keeping up to date. I was going to go back to another point, actually. Yeah, so one of our other sponsors is Wren Kitchens. So if you contact Sanj, you're an architect, contact Sanj, there are his details. He'll draw up a nice kitchen scheme for you so that it goes in your folder and you know, gives you brownie points with your clients if you're an architect. And if you like a kitchen deal, Sanj will look after you. Going back to another point, who's exempt? So I've got another question I'm going to quickly deal with here. Are charities and trusts excluded? No. Charities, trusts are included. The royal family's not exempt. There's only 4 parties that are exempt, and from memory, they're all barristers' ins. So obviously, when the laws were being drafted, the barristers looked after themselves. So that's the 4 parties that are excluded. And I'll bring this to your attention next week if I can. Those are the 4 parties that are excluded. Now, if you're in London, you'll see there's a lot of network rail work going on. They're extending this. Got the name RS2, not RS2, HS2. Yeah. So there's a lot of railway rebuilding and so on. Now, they're actually exempt because there's an addition to the Party Wall Act. There's an amendment they've made in that they don't actually need to give notices. So those guys are exempt as well, but only to a certain level. They're only, and I haven't really worked out where they're exempt or not. So if it's Network Rail that's doing the work, they're exempt. But we've had occasions where we've had to do work for the council, which was part of the station. It's a bit complex, and we were appointed to look after the council's scenario. So not everything is exempt, but as far as I know, the Network Rail is exempt from doing party wall notices. So that's an addition to who's exempt. So charities are not exempt, and trusts are not excluded. In fact, trusts are one of those guys that they'll probably come under rights to receive profits under this, because trusts may not actually be the owners, but they'll have an interest in the land in terms of they'll have rights to receive profits. So they're not excluded. Hopefully that answers that question. Super interesting session today, actually. thank you for those questions. I really enjoyed those questions. Made me work a little bit harder, I think. So thank you for sending that in. And just to recap, if you're an architect and you like to come on the show and discuss party wall issues, happy to have you here. Make it really interesting. And just to go back one more slide. So on to our architects conference on Thursday. I look forward to seeing you. I'll be revealing a free toolkit. It's been a little while in the making. It's quite a simple toolkit. We try and keep it simple, and the idea is helps architects to help their clients to deal with the Party Wall Act, get rid of the problems sometimes that get caused by neighbours and so forth. And we've actually had to work quite hard and think about it to condense it to a minimum point possible. So hopefully that's useful, and I look forward to seeing you everybody Thursday. So once again, thank you for your questions. I might have another one, see if I can have a quick look at it. Hey, another question. And come on, folks, get them in early so we can deal with them, not lastminute.com. Right. Under section 22F, if a party fence wall in brickwork is demolished and rebuilt as a party wall, flank wall in a new rear extension, can this be built in block work and rendered? The AO wants the wall built in the same bricks. Okay. Basically what's happening here, and this is quite an interesting question actually, there's a party fence wall, i.e. there's a party wall outside of the main building. So it's not, it belongs to both owners, but it's not in a building. So that's a party fence wall. Now, each owner, because they simultaneously own it, has a right to demolish it, rebuild it, and put it as part of their extension. No arguments there, right? Adjoining owner, building owners trying to do this in render and block and render. The adjoining owner wants it in brick. First of all, there might be some matching consent issues from the council. It comes under planning issues. Secondly, if the adjoining owner wants something different to what the building owner is proposing, they should serve a section 4 notice within 30 days of receiving the initial notice, and there is some payments towards the difference. So they can have it in a nicer brickwork, but A, they should have served a section 4 notice within 30 days of the initial notice, and B, they have to pay for the difference. So if they're willing to pay for the difference, they can get the brick wall. If not, sorry, tough luck. It's, you know, it's an aesthetic point. We can't remedy it. So that's just my understanding. This is the understanding I've gained from a couple of projects where this has been involved. Usually it's not too much of an issue because the building owner will go, yeah, all right, you can have it in brick. I don't really care. It's not that much of a cost difference, and it just creates good neighborly vibes. But where I've had to go down the law, and this is my understanding of where the Act applies, you need to revert to section 4, and if it's past the 30 days of the initial notice, it's too late. The adjoining owners can't serve a notice and make them do it. And either way, they have to pay the difference in the cost. Okay, come back on this 10-4 there. I believe that surely after 14 days, the option to remind the owner of using an agreed surveyor should be abolished, as they had 14 days to respond within the 3 options. Strictly speaking, the Act is silent on whether you put the option of an agreed surveyor. They do have, actually, they have an absolute right to have an agreed surveyor at any time. The owners can do whatever they like between themselves as long as it's legal. So if the adjoining owner says, I'm happy with an agreed surveyor, that's fine, you know, and they can change their mind at any time. In fact, I believe even if a surveyor on 10-4 is appointed, they can then still say, well, I don't need you anymore. I'm going to go with the agreed surveyor. This is my understanding. Obviously, I can be wrong, but this is really getting into the nitty-gritty of the act. Although it would depend upon the 10-4 surveyor probably agreeing to step aside. So the 10-4 surveyor can agree to step aside, say, okay, well, you can get on with it as an agreed surveyor. And that would be my recommendation. Which bit trumps if you've got a 10-4 appointment? Sorry, trumps. Which bit supersedes the 10-4 appointment or the agreed surveyor? I would say it's probably the 10-4 appointment, actually, and it's only if the surveyor decides to step aside that you can have an agreed surveyor. Hopefully, that's a little bit of a complex argument going on. I might have to ask Stuart the answer to that question. Oh, excellent. Come on, Dill, let's debate this. All right. You cannot, yes, so, okay. Debate going on here, excellent. You cannot rescind an appointment. Yes, that's true. You can't rescind an appointment. So that's why I'm thinking about it. I'm saying it's only if the 10-4 surveyor agrees to step aside. So if you get appointed as a 10-4 surveyor, you'll often get a shirty phone call from the adjoining owner. I'm quite upset. They've appointed me. They haven't sent me these letters. They haven't sent me a notice. Obviously, you'll have it in your file that you'll have certificate of posting and so on. And there you have to be trying helpful. If you don't want to step aside as a 10-4 surveyor, no, it's your legal right not to. So, because it can't be rescinded. However, if you're in agreement and where I get appointed as 10-4 surveyor and the adjoining owner changes their mind and wants to use the agreed surveyor, I personally would step aside because I believe that's saving the building owner money, as long as it's not conflict and the chap has reasonable competence. However, I'm not going to step aside and let them appoint their own surveyor because that's abuse of the act. Two different scenarios. Does that make sense? Yes, you can't rescind an appointment, but a surveyor can deem himself incapable or say, I'm going to step aside. Yeah, so that's the argument I'd use. So come back on that. You can't rescind an appointment. No, you can't rescind it. But the surveyor themselves can say, I don't want to act in this. So that's how a 10-4 surveyor can decide whether they want to take that appointment or not. And where the adjoining owner says, I want to go with the agreed surveyor, normally I'd step aside unless it's something, unless the building owner surveyor is totally incompetent. That's my view. Okay, have we got any comeback? Yeah, have you ever, as an adjoining owner surveyor, provided a timesheet worklog that needs to be mentioned in this? From my experience, I have never been asked, but as some surveyors who could make these situations difficult. Yeah, so that's really interesting. Yeah. As a adjoining owner surveyor, I've never been asked to provide a timesheet. No, because my fees are totally reasonable. Now, you're getting asked for a timesheet if they believe you're, if the amount of money you're claiming is excessive. And I do ask for timesheets. I've got several things going on now where I've asked for a timesheet or where I'm going to be asking for a timesheet because the adjoining owner fees are excessive. That's what it comes down to. And timesheets should either be 6 or 15 minute increments. Where you're creating timesheet at half-an-hour increments, that's rubbish. There's too much potential for rounding. If you're going to charge by time, and the charging out regime is reasonable fees. It's not time spent multiplied by hourly rate. That's nonsense. From the guidance, I understand, my understanding of the guidance, it's a reasonable fee, reasonable costs actually, not fees probably. It's reasonable costs. So if the building owner surveyor thinks you're excessive, they can ask you for a timesheet, but you can argue it's reasonable fees. And then if the two of you are disagreeing, probably end up going to the third surveyor to decide. from my experience, I've never been asked, but there are some surveyors who make situation. Yeah, they can. Nor does any training body, i.e. Okay, yeah, there's no guidance on timesheets. Actually, there is guidance and there's discussion of case laws of timesheet. One case law was with a the building owner surveyor asked for a timesheet, the joining owner surveyor provided one, very detailed, load of rubbish in it, charging for stuff, and the third surveyor put a line through it, said, no, I don't have to look at this. And it actually ended up in court. I think the third surveyor was Mr. Frame. Can't remember who the other two guys was. One may have been Justin Burns. They put a line through it and said, no, that's a reasonable fee. And you get occasions where adjoining owner surveyors, for whatever reason, overstep the mark and it's unfair on the building owner. So that, I think, is a forum debate, and you actually need to be at you need to be on a forum where there's more surveyors and the debate this. Sorry, we're getting off the track. Hopefully that's answered your questions. So thank you for attending. I'm going to have to go to my next appointment, but great little action there. Please, if you're interested in timesheets and so on, you can attend faculty forums. They have forums. There's one on the 16th, I think. You don't even have to be a member. You can attend as a guest. It's a little bit more money, but you'll find it interesting. Try and pick the one where they talk about fees and so forth. Or if there's a barrister doing the training, that's also really useful. And then you can ask your question on fees. So CPDs, not training, CPDs. That's more interesting, I think. Oh, let me see. Tim, can we increase the time of these sessions? We actually have, I think. But look, keep your questions coming in. Always happy to talk about party walls. And I look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. Thank you for your questions. Please keep them coming in.